Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us on this beautiful day.
Hi.
They say that a key trait of successful entrepreneurs is grit. And so if you're sitting here in the rain, I think you're well above everybody else in that department. So well done. So I'm Alyson Shontell. I'm editor-in-chief of Business Insider. Two esteemed investors here to tell us all the secrets you need to know. Laurel Touby is... Touby, oh my God, I'm sorry, Laurel. Laurel is an esteemed both investor and entrepreneur. She founded a company called Media Bistro, sold it for tens of millions of dollars, used some of that money to then start a investing firm called Supernode Ventures, where she's managing partner. And she's investing in mostly early stage companies, right?
Yes.
And then Dan Herscovici, right?
Close enough.
Man, one of us is going to get this
Just
right.
Dan. Just Dan.
Just Dan. Just Dan's up here. He's a partner at Edison Partners. You do more late stage and growth investing, but you've graciously agreed to tell us the tricks and trades of early stage VC all the way on up.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah. So thanks for joining me. But I first want to start with entrepreneurs don't always need to raise money. So I think that's the first thing to get out here, right? There's a lot of different routes you can go. If you are lucky enough to be able to bootstrap, there's that route. You can also raise, you can do friends and family. So how do you even know if you need a venture capitalist to get going?
Alyson, if you don't mind, can we first ask the audience who they are?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
How many of you guys are founders of startup companies? Raise your hands.
There we go.
How many of you have raised capital already? Okay.
Nice.
How many would you say are growth stage companies? Okay, so very few. Okay. Great. So I think that gives us a good idea of how to talk to everybody and give good answers.
Yeah.
Do you want to start with that, Dan?
Sure, my pleasure. So, look, I think the best way for me to answer is to use a metric that Edison uses to assess companies, and it's a capital efficiency metric. And so when we're looking at later stage funds, we're looking at revenue generated divided by, or capital invested divided by revenue generated. And that metric is that capital efficiency metric for us is a very strong leading indicator as to unit economics and success of the enterprise. And so if you take that back to kind of the first money in and how much money to raise, I mean, whether it's friends and family, whether it's a VC, whether it's bootstrapped, well, bootstrap would be best. I think it's important to prove out, take as little money as possible and prove out unit economics and build the enterprise from there. VC versus friends and family really comes down to advising and help, and whether or not you're surrounded by people that have been there before.
All right, so I would add, most of you probably should not be raising venture funding. Raise your hands if you think you want to raise venture funding, because I'm going to talk you out of it. Most companies are not really venture backable, because you have to look at the difference between what your motivations and drives are, which are to build a solid company that takes care of your family and your own personal wealth, and the goals of the venture capitalist, which are to push you, drive you as hard as possible to an exit as soon as possible, a reasonable exit, meaning 10x. And those two things sometimes collide. Most of the time they collide. Most of the time you don't have a business that's going to go like that, and that's okay. It's okay to have a business that grows like this. That's just fine. So that's what I would say in answer to your question.
Just to clarify something. So I mean, while the reputation of the venture capital community precedes itself, and many people do encourage large capital raises and grow at all costs, I think there are exceptions to every norm or every rule, and us at Edison Ventures don't drive a company to grow as you're expecting, and frankly, 10x is an anomaly and something that is unusual. When we're looking at companies, we're looking at 3-4x growth, and we're looking at 10-year horizons. So I think it really depends on who you're interacting with, and finding the right partner is key.
That's great.
So Laurel, when you were starting Media Bistro, I believe you bootstrapped for a long time, and then you wound up raising venture. Why did you make that decision, and what were the differences between you when you were bootstrapped and you owned it all versus when the venture capitalists came in?
So I started my company from my bedroom with my 2 cats, and I never thought it was going to be as big a business as it became. But every single day, I just pushed the ball slightly forward, and the ball kept moving forward and it kept bringing opportunity. And so I didn't raise capital until I was already making some money. And I realized that if I had a little bit of capital, I could experiment. And so I went to an investor and I asked for $1 million. And he said he understood my space, media. He was Marty Peretz. He had vision. He saw my vision. He saw that I had bootstrapped for 3 whole years without taking a dime from the company and just working my butt off. And he said, I want to back you, but I'm not going to lead. So I needed to go then and find a lead investor to put in the rest. I estimated $1 million. I had no idea what I was going to do with $1 million. Just sounded like the right idea. But I actually only raised $500,000 in the end, and I took that money and I held on to it. We went through the downturn of March 2000, and then we went through 9/11, and I did not spend that money because I was so scared that it was the last money I'd ever get. And I think that's some advice for all of you. Any money you do raise, the economy could come tumbling down the next month, and you need to be able to become profitable sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Is you said, you raised $1 million because it sounded good, but you had no idea what the heck you were going to do with it. How do you know how much you actually need for your business? And are valuations just crap? Or is there a math to them that actually makes sense?
Dan, do you want to take some of that?
Sure. So I mean, I have a very different perspective because I'm a later stage investor.
But you didn't you start a company, I thought? No?
No.
Oh, you ran.
Companies within
ran
companies.
a company. Oh, right, okay.
And so I think as often investors, when entrepreneurs come to us, they're surrounded by investors that are convincing them to raise $15, $20, $25 million, and they're actually puzzled with what they would even do with that amount of capital. I think it's really looking at the horizon and what you're trying to accomplish, and the true capital needs to get there. I tend to recommend being very conservative and investing, in raising much lower than you think you need.
I like to be, right now, normally I'm conservative, and I agree with you, take as little as possible, get to some milestones, prove, the next hurdle, and then raise some more. But now, in this environment, I would say raise as much as you can to hold you through the recession that's coming. Because
His hand size just got huge.
I would enormously advise against that.
You know what? He's wrong. He does not run a small company before. I have. And I was really lucky to have that money in the bank for when everything crashed and we could barely pay people. And still, we were running down that funding. And I called up my investors and I said, well, 9/11 hit, March 2000 hit, we're running out of cash. Are you going to put in the next tranche? And they leaned back and they sat in their chairs, I imagine, because it was all over the phone. And they said, I don't know, get profitable and come back. That's what happened. So
So it really depends on the business you're in. Can you be sustainable? A lot of being a successful startup is being like a cockroach that you just can't kill, being able to survive the unthinkable. So there's probably an in-between, depending on...
that happened to me too. I only took in that $500,000, and it was more than I ever needed to get to profitability and to build the company to millions of dollars in sales. And I sold for $23 million, and I got to keep 64% of that. And so a lot of the founders who are out there hustling and starting their next company, they have to. I didn't have to. So,
Yeah. Actually, one thing, I don't know if any of you guys realize this, but I just realized this. Have you heard of QSBS?
yes.
It's this incredible tax rule that every entrepreneur, I feel confident, should know. If you start a C Corp, especially if you start a C Corp in New York City, if you sell your company, you don't have to, and you hold on to the stock for 5 years, you don't have to pay a dime in federal taxes if you sell.
Yeah, up to 10 million, I think, is
Yeah.
the amount. Yeah,
It's called
QSBS. And it's no BS, let me tell you.
No, yeah, look it up. If you're starting a company, you should really look into this.
Qualified small business stock.
Exactly.
There you go.
Yeah, good pro tip.
Dan.
Okay, so say we've convinced these people to ignore your advice and raise venture capital. What do you expect an entrepreneur to have done by the time they walk in your door? Do they need a business plan? Do they need a pitch deck? What do they need to have achieved for you to even...
For me to take them
look at them,
seriously,
yeah.
the most important thing I want to see is that you really, really know what the customer wants. So you've spoken to 100 customers. You've done your research. I don't care if you are the customer. You can be the customer, but you still need to talk to customers. You can't be arrogant about that. You have to, and the second thing I would say is you have to feel like you would do this business even if you didn't get funding. That's what I want to know. I want to know that you're so passionate about changing the world with this product or solution, that this solution has to exist.
It's a sort of proven product market fit. You're solving a big enough problem, and the unit economics work. That's frankly as simple as it gets for me. So what's the problem you're solving? Is it big enough? And does the way you solve it provide profitable unit economics? And if you can deliver those three things and you're passionate about it, I think that's a pretty easy formula.
Especially in the early stage, it's not the idea that gets funded. As you said, your investor was like, I want to invest in you, and that was it. So what are the personality traits that you see in really successful founders, and then what are the giant red flags that do not invest at any cost?
So there's a bunch of research that's been done on personality traits. It's very hard to figure it out by looking at someone in a short conversation and seeing a deck, right? You have to spend some time with that person to actually get to know them a little bit, to hear whether or not they have drive, whether or not they have real confidence, whether or not they have true vision. Those are some. Resourcefulness, high EQ, ability to ask and get from people without paying for something. So I was able, when I was starting my company, to convince a very high-powered lawyer to work for free. I was able to convince people who normally got high salaries for their work to work for half their rate. That's the kind of resourcefulness I want to see in a founder, and that's proven over time and again to be characteristic of a successful founder. In addition, I would add internal locus of control. So that means you feel like you can change your destiny. Not that you're going to be swept by the winds of change and that someone else is controlling you, some circumstance is controlling or affecting your life, but that you control your destiny. That's really, really key.
I agree with much of what you said. I think I'd add 2 points. One is you have to be open to feedback and flexible. I think that without asking questions and demonstrating the ability to change, that'll be a question. And then when you're looking at a founding team, if you have 2, 3 founders coming into the room, their interaction is actually quite important. If the CEO is cutting off or interrupting or interjecting, that behavior raises some red flags for us.
Ooh, there's one other thing you just reminded me of, which is being a liar, right? So there's a good liar and there's a bad liar. A good liar is you kind of bluff that you're going to make it to the next level, that you're going to get those sales. A bad liar is, you bluff too much, you go too far, and you don't tell your investor when things are not working out. So I would say I want to meet someone who's lying to themselves in a way. They believe in themselves so much that they're trying to do the impossible and they're able to get there because of that. But they're not going so far that they're lying to the investor when things go awry.
Yeah, I was going to ask you guys about BS and your BS detectors, because so much of, especially early days of startup, but really all the way through, is you're a visionary, you're pushing your vision, you believe in that nobody else is quite sure is going to make it, but you have to be really confident. And also in the beginning, you don't really have the numbers to necessarily back up why someone should be investing in you.
Has anybody ever told you look like the Theranos founder?
Oh, stop. Just because I'm in a black turtleneck?
Oh my God, it just occurred to me. Oh.
Great. Okay, thank you. All right, so going on to the BS and Theranos, but that is a huge issue. It's
Right.
you've got WeWork, Adam Newman, and you've got Theranos. The Enron guys did this too. I mean, they were such good salesmen.
Elon
and
Musk.
such
Did you just
visionaries.
compare WeWork to Enron and Theranos?
I mean,
Enron does not compute. No, that's not in the same league.
Well, okay, but I'm just saying these guys all did have a similar thing in that they were expert salesmen who got people to believe in what they were selling, and then sometimes they just got way too wrapped up in their lives to the point of
That's
being sociopathic.
exactly what I was saying. But
So
Dan,
there-
maybe you have some extra insights.
My only insight is transparency and honesty always works.
Yeah.
Right.
It's really that
Transparency
simple.
and honesty, but you still have to have vision that,
Vision, I believe, 100%. Vision, you have to believe in what the future will be, but there's a balance there, and
we are at the stage of inspiration, so we can talk about such things.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into the art of the pitch. Like the best pitch and thing that you, something original, unique, something that was that actually worked.
This wasn't on the list of questions. I have no idea. To me, the best pitch is someone who's totally, utterly prepared, who knows their material inside and out, knows their market inside and out, has fielded all the questions that I could possibly ask, and has very thoughtful answers, even if their answers aren't great. Like, yeah, that is a problem. That could be a problem. I want to make sure that they're realistic about what could be hurdles in their way. So that, to me, is an excellent pitch. I don't really want some shtick.
No one's like baked you cookies and come in.
No,
and
that's
like
horrible. This is not Shark
That's
Tank.
a great idea.
Dan, have you seen any great pitches? What did they
No
comprise?
baked goods yet, but that I have to probably
I
put
can't
that on
believe
our
not
list.
one.
That would be good.
Yeah.
I think I said it before. I'm pretty straightforward and pretty simple-minded. Know your market deeply. Demonstrate unique insights that nobody else has revealed in the market that you're attacking. Demonstrate that the product that you're creating, or the service that you're creating, or the solution that you've developed uniquely solves that problem, and that it's solving a big enough problem to matter. If you could do those things cleanly in a pitch, I think you're back.
And I want to see that you have moves, baby. Moves, meaning you didn't just meet me. You got to me through someone who matters to me. I want to make sure you've gotten partnerships that are crazy impossible to get, that you've convinced a big customer, that you've you show up and you make shit happen. I want to see that, right? That's valuable.
So there's another thing here. As much as entrepreneurs need to be pitching you guys need to pitch entrepreneurs. I mean, the really good deals are hot and they're hard to get into. And also, by the way, once you take money, the relationship lasts for a very long time. People say that the investors you pick can be harder to get rid of than spouse if you were to get divorced. So you really need to be pretty careful about this. What are the things entrepreneurs should watch out for from investors as they're on the prowl for money?
I was going to tell them all the reasons why we're great.
Start with that.
All the
Start
things,
with that.
all the red flags from VCs they should be looking out for.
If a VC is not actively engaged with you and helping you build your business, I don't know that you should be taking money from them. You don't want to approach a VC just for a check. At Edison Partners, we invest heavily in what we call the Edison Edge, which is an operating platform that puts product, sales and marketing, HR and recruiting, all at the entrepreneur's disposal, because they have to be surrounded with people that have been there and done that and help them grow their company. So you're really looking for somebody that is going to help you grow your company, not just hand you a bag of cash, walk away and expect you to deliver.
Those are great. I think you should be wary of investors that want to get too up in your business and want to spend too much time with you in some ways if they're not lead investors, if they're not sitting on your board. I'm talking about those angels, those bad angels that have nothing better to do, and so they're throwing tiny checks around and trying to throw their weight around, especially if you suspect that they don't really know your business, which is most of the time. They will try to push you around.
I would also be wary of anybody that tries to convince you to raise more money than you need.
That's true. Totally.
Oh my God, he'll let it go.
All right, well, this is going by really fast, so we've got time for, I think, maybe one or two more questions. I guess, quickly, what should a founder expect from the investors once you guys have wired the money? What's a healthy
Nothing.
relationship?
I'm not going to touch them after that. You should expect a touch-base call, probably from us, once a month, to find out what you need, how we can help. The way we help is through media connections, and we do these amazing dinner parties where I moderate, and we bring together all the right people, whether it's potential customers for you or media that needs to know about you. And you'll be invited to one of our dinners now that I know you look like the Theranos founder. I'm just kidding. You won't be invited because you're not nice. No, so you should expect that they're respectful of your time, but they offer you their help, and that they actually follow up. So that's important. And you can bug them. Don't be afraid of them. my biggest mistake, one of my big mistakes, was probably that I was so afraid of my investors. I didn't call them enough. I didn't bother them enough. I didn't take advantage of their network, and that's important.
I think that's a fantastic point.
Thanks, Dan.
Once again, we're a little later stage, but I'll share with you how we work. During the diligence process, we do obviously a deep look into the company. But that diligence book that we create, the results of our evaluation of the team, our evaluations of sales and marketing performance, our evaluations of gaps in technology, product, platform, et cetera, we actually hand that back to the entrepreneur and have them see what we saw and then help them with a 90, 120-day plan to take action around it. I really believe that the best entrepreneurs pull their investors in when needed, especially to help them with key insights and operational help.
Okay. Well, not to end on a dim note, but the client out there is kind of stormy. I mean, you have WeWork, which just happened, and a lot of the companies that raised over billion-dollar valuations are now having a lot of issues, especially going public. The market does not seem to be reacting well. So given the chilly climate, what would you advise the entrepreneurs in the audience? How should they be moving forward? How will it
Don't
affect them?
stop doing what you're doing. Build a valuable business. Make sure you can get to profitability if you need to. On the East Coast, I think the East Coast has more practical investors who want to see revenues and potential revenues if you don't have them already. On the West Coast, they love moonshots and they love transforming industries. But I feel like out here, we want companies that are built from the ground up that offer valuable products and services.
Yeah, just I reiterate that. I think make sure your unit economics work. Simple as
Unit
that.
economics. Does everybody know what that is? Unit economics?
Make sure you can make money.
That when you're producing your product or service, you're not losing more on the marketing and the overhead and all the stuff. Once you bake in all the numbers, that you're not losing more than you're making on each customer.
Okay. All right. With that, I think we're out of time. But thank you all. Hopefully this was helpful. You can
Thank
pass on
you.
them after. Thanks.